Monica Castellanos is a patient that I actually met as I was coordinated as part of our event. The staff here at the HAC shared with me that Monica, like many other patients, came to them very anxious. But within a short time, they shared that they became, well, just family. I hear that happening over and over again. Our staff here at the HAC are dedicated to those they care for. It isn't just a job, they truly serve with all their hearts, and Monica just happens to be one of many recipients of their care and compassion. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Deb.
Thank you for joining me today. And I thought that your story would really connect with many of our listeners. You're in the prime of your life, you're juggling many things, you're a busy lady, and you shared with me that you felt very healthy, the best that you've felt in a long time. And then, out of the blue, you get a cancer diagnosis.
This is true. So back in the winter of 2018, I discovered a lump in my breast, and I saw my PCP in the winter of 2018, and she felt this lump and she said, it feels like it's benign, you have your mammogram in March. Your last mammogram was fine, so just plan to do that. So I went and I had my mammogram in March of 2018 and needed an ultrasound because of this lump. It was not actually, we learned it was not actually in my breast, it was my lymph node. And at the time I was having a rheumatoid arthritis flare in my right hand, so it made some sense that I would have an enlarged lymph node in my right underarm. The radiologist said come back in 6 months, and so life kind of goes on, and I ended up being a little bit late, and I went in and the lymph node had shrunk, so it was great. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is great. I was managing the day-to-day of a gubernatorial campaign. I was working hard, not really thinking much. I felt pretty healthy. And so I went, again, the radiologist said, make sure you get your mammogram in March. So between January and March, I noticed that it started getting bigger again. I thought, well, that's weird, because at this point the flare was kind of under control, but I didn't think a lot of it because I had rheumatoid arthritis, and it was easy to overlook something that was so benign. And so I went and had another mammogram. I had that mammogram and had another ultrasound, and they said, you know, at this point it's waxing, it's waning, let's do a biopsy. And again, I have friends who are nurses, and we found medical studies that showed that they're women who, or people who have RA, you know, typically, you know, or can have one enlarged lymph node. So on August 5th last year, I was helping my partner who was selling his house. We were having an open house in 6 days, and I was cleaning the stove, and I got the call that I had breast cancer. And it was absolutely stunning because I was feeling really healthy. I was getting my RA under control. I felt really good. I was exercising, you know, feeling really excited about where I was going professionally and what I was doing. And this really just, it just cut me to my core. I just couldn't believe that this had happened. And I kept waiting. I was like, they made a mistake. They had to have made a mistake. And in fact, they hadn't. So that was the beginning of my breast cancer journey. And so that took place on August 5th of 2019. And then so there was this period where they didn't actually know where my primary cancer site was. So I had to wait to be in my mid-cycle to get my scans. So I had an MRI, a CAT scan, and I had to have a bone scan just to see, you know, if in fact the cancer had spread beyond my breast and the lymph nodes. So finally, and so it's funny, it's a funny process because all of a sudden you get this news and then you've got doctor's appointments. Like I was diagnosed on Monday. On Wednesday I met with a surgeon. On Friday I met with a radiation oncologist. It was just
an introduction to a whole new world.
Yes. Exactly. So I ended up, so the results came back. Fortunately it had not spread beyond my lymph nodes. And so I started, it was decided that with the cancer that I had. And what I realized, I don't know if this is the case, but I didn't know anyone who'd had breast cancer, or maybe one person a long time ago. So I didn't realize that there were a lot of subtypes. It never occurred to me. It was just, if you get breast cancer, you have breast cancer. You are not, anyways. I have an aggressive form of cancer. I'm triple positive, which the prognosis is much better now because there is immunotherapy. So I did 6 rounds of chemotherapy from September to December 26th. And then I did surgery at Dana-Farber, and I did 5 weeks of daily radiation. And I finished up my radiation in April. And it's a weird process because when you start and you don't know anything, and it's so, I was very nervous. I was very nervous. I was terrified. I just, I was living my life having a good time, and all of a sudden it's like, well, no, actually you have cancer. And that's a lot to take. And that first amount of time when you don't actually know what's happening, your mind goes to kind of places where you can't help but go to a negative place, I think, because it's so shocking that it happened to begin with. And it was fascinating because when that period was going on, it was 5 weeks. It was a little more than 5 weeks from my cancer diagnosis to the beginning of my chemotherapy treatment. And for a good portion of that, there was a lot of unknown. And ironically, one of the things that happened was, all of a sudden, like, my friend said, I knew someone who had breast cancer. I knew someone who had breast cancer. And I ended up with this informal network of women who I didn't know. I only knew 2 of them. And then I had this network of 12 women, and it was amazing. And in speaking with what Rhonda said about stranger danger, I had an experience here where it was the Friday after diagnosis, and I was meeting with Dr. Healy, my radiation oncologist, and for some reason, it was 7:30 in the morning. I don't do mornings well, ever, on a good day. But I was making my first trip to the cancer center, and somehow drove by and ended up in the back lot. And I was looking, and obviously looked confused and upset, and this woman said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I have an appointment with Dr. Healy." And she said, "Oh, honey," she said, no, you got to go over to the other building." And she said, "Are you here for yourself?" And I was with my partner, or your partner. And I said, "Well, I was just diagnosed with breast cancer." And I started to cry. And she grabbed my hand and she said, "You're going to be all right. This is really hard right now, but I'm a survivor too." And it was a woman named Julie who works at MaineGeneral. And I just thought the irony of all of the people that I could meet. I met this incredible woman who actually came to my appointment with me when I got my results. It was so striking and amazing to just have this opportunity. But
I love those stories. I hear them over and over again. And when people stop and take time to do the extra things like that Julie took time to go with you to the appointment and be that buddy, a stranger that you didn't even know, really helped you through a very difficult time. It's amazing. You can't downplay, that's not the word that I want to use, so you'll cut this out, but it's amazing how people step up. Yes. And you are still receiving some treatment right now. You're almost finished, So my chemotherapy I did every 3 weeks. Did day-long chemotherapy, and now I do Herceptin and Perjeta, which are immunotherapy drugs, which I take every 3 weeks, and I will do through the end of October, and hopefully that will be the end of my journey beyond some hormone treatments for the next 10 years. Great. And I know you love the milestone bell, so I know you'll be ringing that again. Oh, I'll be ringing it. Great. Good. Monica, one thing that you shared with me that really touched me was about how this cancer diagnosis has impacted your life and made some changes in it. But one of the terms you used was that you described it as a discipline of gratitude. And I wonder if you could share that with our audience today. Just what has happened to you?
Sure. So it happened really quickly, but what I found in my cancer diagnosis, and again, I would like to go back and say I was incredibly nervous, very, very nervous, and not used to where my life was going at that point. So, but the discipline of gratitude for me is what I realized is that what was important stayed, and all kinds of other things just fell to the side. I just stuff I didn't need, either emotional stuff or physical stuff. I got rid of stuff that didn't matter because, and the discipline of gratitude was, it was my neighbor who was cooking me things. It was my other neighbor who came to clean the cat litter box every other day. God bless her. Or my partner who was doing all the shopping and the cooking, and and every day there was something to be grateful for. If it was, my black lab lying on the bed next to me when I was, on the hard days of chemo.
Right.
And every day there was something to be grateful for, and I found that, even through the 3-week cycle, when I would get to the point of that following week, the last week before my next treatment, and I started to feel good, I was so grateful, and it's just, I don't know that I would have got it quite as quickly if I hadn't gone through this process. I wish I hadn't gone through this process, but I feel like there's been the cancer journey, and then there's sort of been a parallel journey of life and what is important and what isn't important. And on the other side of it, I feel like I've kept the stuff that's really good.
We should all be living our life that way, right?
Right, absolutely.
A spirit of gratitude every moment, and and sometimes it does take things like this to get us to that point too. So I'm sorry it is happening to you too, but your attitude and how you're moving forward with it is inspiring. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we wrap up today, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience before we leave them?
Well, first off, I think, I would like to say thank you for running an amazing center here. The staff is incredible from the minute you walk through the door, and those 3 lovely women who are so kind and frankly are the front lines of people who are a lot of times in crisis. They're the people coming in are dealing with things that they never thought they were going to deal with, and to have those 3 women greet you and listen to you and just be incredibly helpful, and the chemo nurses, I can't speak enough about this particular facility, and I'm glad that it was here, and I was lucky to do this. But I think in terms of other people who are going through this, I know that one of the things I looked for when I was first diagnosed was I wanted success stories. Because it's hard. It's hard to be told you have cancer, so I think that what I would say to folks, what worked for me was I had a book that I wrote down all of my symptoms. I wrote down what I ate. I wrote down what my temperature was so that I could refer back to it. It was just helpful. I educated myself on breast cancer treatments. And for me, that was helpful. Some people, but you have to make sure you go to the right place because there's a lot of stuff on the internet that can make it worse. So talk to your physicians. And then lastly, there's not a way to deal with this. It's, you deal with it as it comes, and sometimes it's going to be really hard, and some days it's better, but it's still really hard. And just be gentle with yourself. It's just, you have to be.
Oh, those are powerful words, and thank you for that. I think about our event today, Day of Hope, but each day is a new day that you have to find that hope, and you have to find the resources and people around you to just keep going. So thank you for your inspirational words today.
Thank you.
Thank you.